Allegedly!
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. Here's a brief disclaimer for tonight's show. Let's watch.
That's ignorant! Allegedly, that's ignorant! Ignorant.
Judgment, Arthur.
Oi, you read my thoughts. You've got the shinning.
You mean shining?
Shh, you wanna get sued?
Judgment, Arthur.
You just use that shin of yours to call me and I'll come a-running. But don't be reading my mind between 4 and 5. That's Willie time.
Hey, yo, boss. I love him when he does that.
On the morning of February 9th, 2023, Crystal Jones made a doctor's appointment, but she never made it. Some say the investigation into her death is riddled with mistakes. Now, almost 2 years later, the family says they are haunted by questions that may never be answered. A West Carroll Parish Sheriff's deputy found Crystal Jones dead inside her home after Crystal's husband, Tony, called the deputy asking him to conduct a welfare check. According to the investigative report, just hours later, the chief deputy interviewed Crystal's husband for the first time.
I'll be taking the statement from Tony in reference to a self-inflicted gunshot wound of his wife, Miss Crystal McCrory Jones.
Crystal's sister, Jana, believes it should have been investigated more before the sheriff's office declared it a suicide.
It took them 7 minutes to interview him, and in that 7-minute interview, they mentioned that it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Eventually, reports did come back. According to letters sent to state police from Jana's lawyers, those reports were full of errors and discrepancies. Jana says one glaring mistake made her question the entire investigation. The investigative report states law enforcement never found the shell casing. The husband did a week later. But Sheriff Matthews says the casing is pictured in the crime scene photos.
That's when I said something is wrong, because he said that that casing was plain as day in a crime scene photo that 5 sets of eyes had missed, and it wasn't there. It's in no crime scene photos.
As the investigation continued, Jana says the amount of errors kept piling up. According to the case file, the ballistics report misidentified the gun. You can see on the ballistics report, it identifies the gun as a Ruger EC9. But if you check the serial number, it's actually an LC9. The coroner's report had multiple mistakes, including Crystal's name being misspelled, incorrect birth and death dates, the time of death was scratched out and changed, and health conditions were listed that Jana says Crystal did not have.
It also listed that she had pneumonia and seizures. My sister never had any of those medical problems.
According to the case file, there was no canvassing of the area, no interview with neighbors, and there were less than 40 photos taken of the scene. In some photos, the family dog could be seen on the bed with the body.
They would handle things totally different if it was their loved one. I think that they just messed up from the very beginning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here, coming at you with another raw narrative. Today, we're talking about what happened to Crystal McCrory Jones, and I have her sister as a guest tonight. Her name is Jana, so be sure to Jana and show her some love in the chat. Hey, Jana, can you hear me?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are
Great.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thank you for asking. Um, I just wanted to kind of start out tonight and let you talk about your sister. So I think we should just kind of jump right into that. I think just basically tell me about Crystal.
Okay, so Crystal was incredibly goofy. She was probably the goofiest individual on the face of the earth, and one of the most beautiful people too. Um, she was all about doing pranks on people and joking with people. Her entire life revolved around her sons. She had two sons, and then her nieces and nephews. They were like her pride and joy. She was um, a couponaholic, if that's even a word. Um, all about finding thrifts at the thrift store and going to Dollar Generals. That was like her hobby, was thrifting and finding things like that. But she had a love for Michael Kors purses, so she would spend extra money on those purses. So super cheap everywhere else, but loved her purses.
I
Uh,
love Michael Kors. Like that's my favorite person. So that's really cool. I love that. Like, which that was the one that she would spend her money on if
yeah,
she
she would
had.
spend her money on a Michael Kors purse. So yeah, she was an amazing individual, and her gift was that she would give gifts to other people. Like it didn't matter if you got a certificate at school or your name was in the newspaper for something. Like anything, even small, she would make sure that she gave you a gift and made you feel like you were like the president of the United States every single time.
Oh, that's amazing. I could tell, I don't know, just by her pictures, I just had that feeling like she just has a good heart. Like people probably loved being around her. Um, that's kind of what I got from her, but she loved purses and thrifting. I'm a huge thrift store person, so I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, tell me a little bit more about kind of her family and just some fun things. I want to know, I want everybody to know how and who she is kind of. um and then I was going to ask some other questions, so I wanted to kind of
So
put her first, but then let him go next,
yeah, um,
if that makes sense.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I didn't come along until Crystal was 10 years old. So I have a brother and a sister. My brother is 14 years older than me, and my sister Crystal was 10 years older than me. And then my mom and dad got married and they had twins. So I have a twin brother. So my sister
Oh,
had like these live baby dolls. So when she was 10 years old, me and my twin brother were born. And she was basically like our mom. Like she raised us and like doted on us and, played with us and things like that. And when she was 19, she moved to New York. She moved from Louisiana to New York with her high school sweetheart. And she lived away from me for probably about 5 years, and then that's where I learned to write. Like we would write notes and stuff back and forth to each other, and put letters in the mail.
is
Um,
that what the different little cards were? I remember the one, banana. Is that what it would? That's what
so
she would
that
call
was,
you.
yeah, that's what she would call me. But that was written. So when we became adults, and I had my first daughter when I was 18, we became super close because I have her only two nieces. Like our brothers have all boys, and she had boys, and so that card was written. She was actually moving to Vicksburg, Mississippi in 2018, and I was moving into the house that she had moved out of. And she left me this book. It says a book of love notes, and that was the first page of it. Was Dear Banana, and I love you to the moon and back, big sister. And that's what I have tattooed on my arm now. Is I love you to the moon and back with her signature. Um,
Yeah, I love
And
that tattoo. I don't have any tattoos myself, but like if I ever got something, it would be something like that. That really means a lot, you know?
yeah,
So that was sweet. I love that picture of you. I like to put that in the videos, so.
so she we were close growing up, and then like I said, once I became an adult, like throughout my teenage years, we were back and forth with each other, because I was stubborn, she was stubborn, and then when I became a mom of my own, things changed, like, and we were just super close, like best friends. And I'll just tell you this, like one time when she lived in Bastrop in around 2017, she gave me a key to her house, and it was so that, in case I needed something, I could come get it. Well, I was a elementary school teacher, so I would have summers off. So I would go into her house and take all of her clothes off of her clothes hangers, like off of her white clothes hangers, and put them on different colored clothes hangers just to aggravate her because she was so OCD about things. But
That's
she took
funny.
she took my house key away.
I was gonna say, what did she do? That's hilarious. So she took your house key away.
She took my
Nice.
house key away. She gave it back, but she told me I couldn't do that anymore.
I
That's the
love
kind
that
of
you
relationship
did that though.
we
That's
had.
so cute. Like that's funny. I bet you she
Yes.
was like, "What in the world happened?"
Yeah, she immediately knew it was me and then called me.
Oh, she knew it was you then. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Aw, so you guys are like really, really close. You guys have, I mean, even though you're far apart in age, because that's what's hard when you have a sibling that's like far apart in age from you. You don't get to spend as much time, but it seems like you guys did. Like you made time to spend together and
Once we became both became moms, and I realized what moms do and the amount of like love and support that they have to have, like our entire world's changed.
well, she was like a mom to you then because that's how I
Yeah,
felt when, with my mom, like when I had my daughter, yeah, I was more, I said thank you to her and I'm sorry. And, like,
right.
cause now I know like um, responsibility, but then also the love and everything. Yeah, that's beautiful that you know, said that. So, if you don't mind telling me a little bit about, it seems like your sister just loved with her whole heart, and I'm that way, and so I just wanted to know kind of how, because you said she had a high school sweetheart.
Yeah, she had a high school sweetheart. So my sister kind of had she had one main problem, and that was finding herself and who she was. And so she was married. Tony was her fourth marriage, and so she had a hard time finding herself as an individual and not necessarily as with somebody else. But she was married to some amazing people that it just didn't work out for whatever reason, and I still love them wholeheartedly. So that was the main thing, was just her not being able to find herself and who she was in a marriage.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, relationships are really hard, and especially after a little while. I mean, a lot of times it's amicable and it's just kind of like, mutual. Oh, I think I lost you, hun. Thank you guys so much in the chat. I see everybody. I see everybody. I tried to say thank you before, just so thank you forever, Nikki's mom. Oh, here we go. Hold on, guys. I got her back. There we go. And there we go. Sorry, Jana.
Oh, it's okay. It kicked me out for a second.
Goodness. I know. I'm still learning how to do all this, just kind of all of it, the YouTube and StreamYard, and I think we're moving over to YouTube again. So, you know, it's a learning experience. But no, what I was saying is that I think because I had a high school sweetheart too. That's my daughter's father, and
Yeah, same.
obviously, yeah, he was actually the person who mistreated me. But we were together for a long time, and so like I think that especially even after him, I didn't really find too much I mean, like I have a boyfriend, but it's just it's difficult, like there was a lot of failures that I just didn't get married. So I think that's really common now, like, as it wasn't before. But yeah, you never want to stay in a bad situation or a situation that's not good.
Yeah, or a
Um,
situation that just doesn't make you happy. And that's what my sister kind of
yeah.
struggled with, was just finding her happiness and, somebody who kind of valued the same things that she did.
Yeah, that's really tough. I think that's one of the toughest things. And then also when you have kids, it's hard too because you want to make sure it's a good situation for your kids. And it's not, yeah, it is not easy. Oh gosh, it is not easy. And then a lot of times, and it happens with men and women. I always like to give that disclaimer, but I speak from being a woman who was mistreated rather than a guy. So I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know really how it is for them, but I agree that it happens. Either way, if you're being mistreated by somebody, you don't want to stay with them. Um, so but it just seems like she really loved Tony a lot. Could you tell me how? Because it in her phone it says Tony, my love. That was somebody that she truly cared about. So I just kind of wanted to know how they got together and if they had kids together or if they have like stepkids involved and things like that.
Yeah. So, just to be like 1,000% transparent, like I said, she, had problems finding herself in marriages. She was married to someone named Damon, who I still love unconditionally to this day.
Aw.
And on and he had a daughter, and my sister had her two sons, and so they didn't have any children together. But he was just a long time friend of hers. When she moved back home, they kind of rekindled their relationship, and she married him. Um, and then on January the 3rd, 2017, and I know the date because I looked back in my phone, my old phone from when this happened. Their heating element went out. Her Damon and Crystal's heating element went out in their house, and Tony was the guy contracted to come in and fix things that went wrong in that house through the landlord. And
Because
he
he was
came
in
in.
heating and air, is that right? That he was in the heating and air, like he had a contract with the schools and he would go
Yes,
like school to school, is that right?
yes, that's what he does now. But yeah, he back then he had his own like little business or whatever, and he came in and he decided that he liked my sister, and that's how the relationship started. Is
She's
he was
so
the
pretty. Like, oh my gosh, I don't how could somebody not like her? That's, that would be my question. I wouldn't wonder why,
and
she's really pretty, so
he
and
promised her
good
the world.
personality.
Right, he promised her the world, and I went through the text messages of the screenshots she would send me of their conversations. And he promised her the world, and financial freedom because he had money and things like that. Just he was a very what I call a smooth talker or sweet talker, and she
Mhm.
ended up leaving her husband and going with Tony. And Tony was in the middle of a divorce himself. I don't think it was finalized at that time, but that's how they met. And I'll be honest with you, going through the text messages, I begged her not to do it because I love Damon so much. And but she just wasn't happy um, in her marriage, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. But I support, she was my sister. I was going to support her whatever she decided to do.
So
Um,
Damon was a good guy though. He was good to her and stuff like that.
yes, he was amazing
Good,
to
that's
her,
good.
and he
Good.
still loves her. He's part of the Justice for Crystal page. Um, he's he still loves her. I have pictures of him and his daughter with Crystal that he lets me post. Yeah, he's a great guy.
That's wonderful. See, because I was just curious as to like if, because I know a lot of times that's part of it too. You'll think that you found somebody really nice and they aren't really nice.
I
And
know
like you
he
said, promising someone the world, like love bombing,
yeah,
is kind of how I would describe it. Just telling them all this stuff, future faking, but it's one of those things where um, yeah, it's yeah, I just wondered, and I'm really glad that she wasn't going through. So Tony and uh, Crystal get together. They Are they happy at first? Everything's good, or did she realize quickly that he was not who he said he was? How did that go?
Initially, she was promised, financial freedom. She was promised, he would say, I'm going to church. If the text message says, I'm going to church, I wish you were here with me. Things like that. And she was just swept away. When she loved with all of her heart. Like there was no in the middle. It's either, everything or nothing. And she put her whole heart and soul in every relationship she had because that's who she was. And she just couldn't get anything in between. And so she was extremely happy. And she loved him until she passed away. I'm sure she did. Did she love everything about him and all the decisions he made and the things he did? Probably not, but she still loved him.
Right. Yeah. What kinds of things was he doing? Like, was he, because I know that, like, that sounds great. He's like, hey, I'm at church. I wish you were here. That's really nice. I would want to hear that. If I was, first dating someone or, someone I was interested in, that would make me more interested. So, like, how did that progress? Was he not a church guy, or was he a complete liar, or were there some truths? I guess is what I'm
They went to
wondering.
church together. They ended up part of a church and things like that. And then some issues arose that they ended up not being part of that church anymore. Um, and so, I mean, he kept up some of his words. He uh, they ended up getting together. They didn't get married right off the bat, but then they ended up moving to Mississippi almost immediately after they got together. So he moved her away from me, which broke my heart because even though it was just an hour and a half drive, I was used to seeing her every single day. You know,
Yeah.
we were, our kids went to the same school. I was at her house every morning, so I went from seeing her every day to she lived in Vicksburg, and they only lived there for a little while before they ended up traveling back to Louisiana and landing in Oak Grove, where they resided for about 3 years because they'd only been together wholly for 5 years. They didn't have any kids together. He had two children, and my sister had two children too, but none together.
I saw that on the police report. That was that day they were picking up a daughter, or he was spending time with his daughter
Yeah,
that
he checked his
day.
daughter out of, yeah, he checked his daughter out of school that day, um, and then was riding around town um,
Was that
with
normal that he checked her out of school? Did he typically do that, or?
from my knowledge, she was supposed to be a bus rider in the afternoons. I'm not quite sure why he checked her out that day.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that. It kind of like piqued my interest a little bit. Um, so they're together for 5 years. How did um how fast did they get married? It sounds like, because what worries me about moving, what ties did he have to Mississippi? I guess I'm sorry if I asked you compound question there, but like, what was it? Why did they move to Mississippi? Was it an isolation thing? Do you think, or was it something that they had? His job was there or something?
Something having to do with his cousin working over there and them kind of going into business with each other. I'm not
Hmm.
quite sure what happened. They only lived in Mississippi a few months before moving back to Louisiana. I don't know if there was an
Okay.
argument with someone, but when they moved back to Louisiana, they moved to Oak Grove and not back to Bastrop where I live at.
What was your opinion of Tony? Like, obviously you liked Damon. You thought Damon was really nice and good for your sister, and you liked him. What did you
Yeah,
think about Tony? Not really in comparison, but like just as a person, like
he was
what
a
did,
sweet talker. My exact words to her in a text message from 2017 was, "He's a sweet talker," and that's pretty much the only explanation I can give. Is from the very beginning, just promising her the world. Um, he was a smooth talker, and she fell for every single love line that he would drop um, because he said all the right things, and she fell for those things.
mm, okay, yeah. And let's see here. Oh yes, that's what I was going to ask. So how long did they date and before they were married?
I think they were only together maybe a year and a half before they got married. They met in 2017. I want to say they got married in 2018. or
Wow, that
2009.
is so fast.
They weren't together very long at all.
And that's kind of part of that sweet talking, I'm assuming, like, let's get married right away. And,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was, I got a text one day because they just did it in church with her sons there. Something very quick, very small, spur of the moment, like they eloped and got married.
Okay. Yeah. To me, that just seems like very quick. I don't know. I would get so nervous if I'd be scared. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but that's because I just feel like that is so fast. But I'm sure, like you said, with him saying everything, all the right things, and that's what's hard.
Right.
Um, because yeah, that's really hard. Um, so did you guys know that she was being mistreated at all? I mean, did she ever, or did she tell her friends?
So this is, it was more of verbal things that we were told. Like she told me and my sister, or our sister-in-law, they got into an argument and he told her, your other husband's got the skinny version of you, I got the fat version of you. And then
Mm.
when she found out that she was going to be a grandma, when her son told him that him and his wife were, told her that him and his wife were going to have a baby, they got into this little argument because Tony said, well, great, that means we got to spend more money, going to see your son, or something of that nature. So she never expressed any kind of physical abuse, but the verbal abuse was there, especially when it related to like her appearance or her body, because she was, as you can see, she kept herself up. She was a beautiful woman, but um,
Absolutely.
she was very self-conscious about weight and self-conscious about herself. So just those jabs at her,
Hmm.
at her, who she was as a person, was the only thing that she ever told us.
Well, it just sticks with you too. And I mean, I would be self-conscious if somebody said that to me. Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the one of the ones that women don't like to hear. So
Right.
Mr. Sweet Talker was it's funny how they switch off like that. Because yeah, I would that's terrible. And yeah, I mean, I don't I don't blame her for feeling that way. So basically you guys knew that he was doing this.
Yeah, the verbal abuse, like when they would get into arguments and things like that, she would confide in me, she would confide in my sister-in-law. I'm sure she
Mhm.
confided in friends. But the thing was, she was such a private person, and she wanted people to think that she had not necessarily the perfect life, but I guess you could say the perfect life, because she didn't want anybody else to know what was going on behind closed doors. Like when I tell you she loved with her whole heart, she did. She didn't want anybody to think less of someone. So the little information we did get from her, I'm very surprised that we got.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times people do want to keep it private because, well, for one, it's embarrassing, but then also, um, you know, this person, we go back to that person, and we don't want everybody to be mad at that person, you know. But the fact that she told you guys is like huge because she trusted she trusted you with that. And then that's a hard position for you to have been in. Were you guys kind of telling her to leave and, you know?
No, because we knew that she wouldn't. We never try to convince her to leave him or anything like that, because they would have arguments, and then a couple of days later everything was back to the way it was. And she didn't want us to think any less of him, because she knew I had an opinion of him. She knew my brother had an opinion of him. And she just didn't want us to think any less of him when those arguments were done and things were back to being, the happy, perfect family. So no, she wouldn't tell us this. We wouldn't tell her to leave or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't blame you guys. Because I know, just from personal experience, even if people tell you to leaving stuff, and that's the first thing like trolls will like to say is that like, how come they don't just leave? You know, it's like, well, and some people legitimately want to know. So not saying everybody that asks that's a troll, but it's just like it's very difficult and it's not as easy as it seems. Now I know, and I'm not. I guess I didn't want to get it too far into that tonight, but I do want to go into it. But I know that there were some prior domestic violence. Gosh, DV. Sorry, prior DV that happened. Um, so with Tony and someone else.
Right. It was Tony and the well, I'm not gonna say who it was, but it was Tony and a previous girlfriend. And I found it was an open records report that I found as part of the clerk's records or whatever when I was just searching through, and it had mentioned some physical abuse, and I think it was strangulation was mentioned and things like that. They got into an argument. That report I think was from about 15 years ago, but to me, it said a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off at all. I just, I really think that unless somebody gets help for that kind of stuff, it doesn't, it carries over. Let's just say that. And I know it does. So that's what made me like really wonder because it wasn't just like, yeah, like it wasn't just kind of like a slap or something or pull someone's arm. It was pretty in depth. You don't really go for that position unless you're going to hurt somebody or unalive them, in my opinion. And so, did you notice a change in your sister at all? I mean, did she seem like more, and I hate to ask, but like depressed, or did she have higher anxiety? Things like
So
that, like as a result of being put down constantly. Because I mean, that to me, too, is, I mean, it's just as bad because you can heal from some of that stuff, but when someone's constantly putting you down, it just kind of like goes into your brain and stays there. And so, and it takes a long time to work it out. So that's why I'm just curious, like, did your sister have a change in her demeanor at all?
she ended up becoming more distant from us. Like the longer the relationship went on, the more her whole life revolved around him, around the karate studio, things like that. We still talked, but like we wouldn't see each other as often as we used to. If she wasn't wrapped up in the karate business, then she was wrapped up in having to help him with his business or something like that. Um, it was it was like he did everything he could to isolate her from us. And she expressed more of these things to my brother and his wife than she did to me, just because she knew I had a very strong opinion of the relationship to begin with. And like I said,
Right.
she didn't need to think anything less of him or her or anything like that. So her anxiety was pretty bad. Just on like on an average day, just because we do have that high anxiety. She and I both kind of have the same personality. Um, and then when her son graduated high school, he went into the Navy, and so that did heighten the anxiety some. But she was
Oh
incredibly
gosh,
proud of
yes.
him. So, but she just didn't have him in the house anymore, and it was just her and him, and then his daughter. And it, her anxiety kind of went through the roof.
Yeah, well, I mean, being a mom that has when, and thank you for his service too, or thank him from me for his service, because that's a honorable decision. And then also just with being a mom, I only have a daughter, so but if she went, or if I had a son and he went, I would be so nervous too, and proud, very proud, but also, yeah, you don't know where they're at. Lots of times, they'll call you from different places. And so, yeah, absolutely. I can see that. the dynamic there. When did all of this kind of start? I mean, did you know? Because and I have the pictures that will post them. Um, how did she get all those bruises? I mean, that's a lot. That was
This
after
is
she
what I
passed away that you guys saw that? Because like that is not self-inflicted.
so the bruising. What happened was when we went to go do her makeup, the funeral director told my sister-in-law and myself, we were both there, that the bruising that was on her arms, especially on her left arm, wasn't normal after an autopsy because once she passed away and your heart stops beating, you can't bruise anymore. And he told us to take pictures because it was abnormal bruising. And this is a funeral director telling us this, someone that sees, people that are unalive all the time. And he just told us
Right.
that it was not normal bruising. And so we never got an explanation of where these bruises came from. We brought up this conversation to the sheriff, the district attorney. I even brought it up to the medical examiner that did the autopsy. And he claims that those bruises aren't there. But in autopsy photos, there's not even a single picture of her left arm. There's no pictures of the bend of her arms or anything like that to show, that in the autopsy.
Yeah, and I am definitely not a medical professional, but I'm here to tell you that. I mean, and I'll show you guys. I'm gonna pull them up. Um, yeah, I mean, there's just no way. For one, I guess I'm struggling to understand how they would not have more formally documented that, which they didn't. Obviously, they got a lot of stuff wrong. They spelled Crystal's name wrong for one. They scratched out a date and they put the wrong date. I mean, it said 2020, and this happened February 9th of 2023, right?
Right, and they had 2020 as her birth date, and she was born in '79.
See, that's crazy. I mean, like, so all of those details were wrong, but then also they just failed to document the obvious. I mean, it's just obvious. It's not, like I said, I don't have anything. I have a friend of mine who works at a funeral home. She's, but so I understand some of it, but I have not. I also know that those bruises are, well, I'll just show you guys. I'll just show you guys. Okay, guys, and you can where um she put his name in his phone as Tony My Love. Well, okay, so who did the bruising? You know what I mean? Yeah. Um
And that's what we were questioning too, is where did for those bruises to have formed like that, it had to have happened before she passed away. And
oh
we
yes.
just don't we just don't know where they came from because she wasn't a weightlifter, she wasn't a bodybuilder, she didn't wrestle with alligators. She was an insurance agent, and a mom.
When was it that she called into work? What, because I'm just gonna put it out there. This is all alleged in our opinion, guys, but I'm gonna tell you from experience that when you get bruising that badly in places where people can see it, you have no choice but to call into work because you don't want anybody seeing it. So when she called into work, could that have been around the time
It was
that?
around the time. She called into work February the 7th.
Yeah.
And I had actually never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I know that, we have to say all that stuff, but I mean, there's just so much that's pointing towards it. So it's hard for me to say, because holy cow, I mean, and then, um, you know, in hindsight, did you see any red flags, like in hindsight, that you could have, that you can like see now that like maybe he was, I mean, was there other events that she didn't go to, because or that she was supposed to? You said his, like, it seemed like her life revolved around him. Was
Yeah,
that
like
part of it?
just so for example, December is my birthday month and both of my daughter's birthday months. And the December before she passed away, um, she brought my daughter's gifts on their birthdays. Like I think she sent flowers to my oldest daughter. But
Oh, okay.
like yeah, like I didn't hear from her on my birthday, which was extremely odd. Um, and when I look back at it now, there was a picture that she had pinned his location at like a preferred inn or something like that in Bastrop, in the town that I live in. And it was pinned on my birthday. So um, to me, that was like a red flag of her mind was preoccupied that day with his location and where he was at, which is why I didn't hear from her till the next day. Um,
Right.
so I look at little things like that now, um, just to think back and say, well, why did this happen the way that it did, or if there was any red flags anywhere else. And that was the main one that I saw and I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, that it was out of the ordinary, like she typically didn't. Yeah, there was something that she didn't typically do that she did do.
Right.
Yeah, and those things are so important. I know it's probably hard because I mean, I do that too. I kind of overanalyze things sometimes, but um, just kind of looking back, I was just thinking, and I'm sure you probably think all the time about stuff like that, because it's coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. February 9th will be 2 years.
Yeah. And then has anybody come forward with information, like her friends or other family members, or is there anything like you can recall um, about her
So
telling anybody about? Because I mean, it looks like there was a big altercation around the time of this event.
so I we did some friends came forward with some arguments that they had had about his daughter and some issues with discipline and things like that. I won't go into too much detail there because it's just what I've been told.
Sure.
Um, and so they had a lot of arguments centered around his daughter and what my sister thought was appropriate discipline for whatever she had done wrong compared to what he thought. Um, and this argument happened just like the night before, 2 nights before she had passed away. Um, and it was a pretty intense argument. Um, and my sister just didn't feel like the discipline that took place matched the wrongdoing of his daughter. And once I looked through my sister's Google search history, I was able to pull up like some articles. You know how you research articles on parenting and things like that, and
Sure.
she had searched for do daughters need more discipline from their mom or from their dad to be successful or something of that nature. So yeah, there was some big arguments around that centered around that.
Yeah, and she was a boy mom, so it was a little different, right? Navigating being a
A,
mom,
a teenage girl.
mother to boys and then a little girl. Yeah, and I think that's smart. I mean, if you don't know the answers to stuff, that's what a lot of people do. They Google research and just kind of, I think that shows that she was trying to be a good stepmom, which is important. Um, and so let's see. I wanted to get into some more. Oh, so when did Tony decide that he was going to go into the police academy, and then when did he kind of um, like fail out of it, or he couldn't go any further? Could you just kind of elaborate on that just a little bit?
So he was part of the police academy for, I'm not the police academy, I'm sorry, the sheriff's department for right at a year um, before he quit. And let me look it up. I believe that um, it was around 2019 that he was put, sent to the police academy by yeah, it was 2019 around July. Um, and he couldn't make it through the police academy. Like he quit on the second day, is what we were told by the sheriff. Um, but he had already been employed with them for like a year. He was employed as a dispatcher and then as a deputy sheriff, where he went on calls and things like that. And so they decided to put him to the police academy, and I believe he quit on the second day, and that was in 2019. Under the same sheriff, the same lead investigator that investigated Crystal's case.
Yeah, why did he call him on his cell phone and say that Crystal was not answering his call? I mean, that was
So he,
also very fast and very curious to me.
so he called a deputy, Chuck Harris,
Mhm.
um, that that day. I guess they knew each other from him working at the sheriff's department, or then they remained close friends. I'm not quite sure. I mean, they weren't directly beside each other neighbors. Like Chuck Harris lived down the road from them. They made it seem like they lived next door to each other, but they didn't. Um, and he called him to do a welfare check on his cell phone. I don't know if he called him on his work phone or his personal cell phone. We could never get any kind of cell phone records because that would have cleared a lot of things up. Um, but he called him to do a welfare check because he said he couldn't get her to answer the phone. And but he was
Yeah,
only 20 minutes away.
and he only called like, I mean, how many times did he try to call her before he
Um,
called the deputy?
we asked that, and we never could get an answer. We asked for the basic phone records. What we asked for initially was Crystal's phone records because
Hmm.
it would have given us an exact time, more of an exact time of death, or who she talked to last. Maybe her last activity on her phone. Was it a Google search? Was it an app being open? Just her last activity on her phone that day. And we didn't get anything. We couldn't get anything in regards to a report or anything like that.
Mm. Yeah, that's really frustrating because that would be the most helpful, like you said, in pinpointing like a better timeline. And he wouldn't give you that information. Like what's Tony doing nowadays? Is he um
He's engaged
uh,
um, to a lady, and he is working, I believe, as a maintenance man for the school system. He doesn't do contract work anymore because, like I said, his license was revoked in 2018. So I believe he's employed as a maintenance man at that high school. Um, I could be
okay.
wrong, but that's what I've been told.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know it's kind of hard to, well, I was just curious, really, and just kind of, because it is typical for guys like that not to be single for very, very long. And then also, um,
Definitely.
oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm so sorry, Jana, go ahead.
Oh no, no, he's definitely moved on in his relationships.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's not been that long. And then, yeah, that's really curious. So I have another kind of a video just that we can kind of talk over because I didn't put any like sound in it. But it's some of these, if it's some documents. Really quick though, I mean, or not really quick. You take as much time as you need. But my question is what do you think happened to your sister? Like, what is your main theory, or what are some of your theories? Because I know sometimes we
So,
can have more than one.
um, I've gone through every scenario possible in my head that could have happened that day, and just to kind of like sum it up into literally a quick scenario, because I've gone through so many, probably hundreds in my head, is due to the lack of investigation that they did, the lack of collecting evidence, the lack of gunshot residue testing, the lack of DNA testing, the lack of reporting. Um, at the end of the day, unless somebody just comes forward with a complete confession or with information that is just super damning evidence, I'm never going to know what happened that day. I'm never going to know if she pulled that trigger. Did someone else pull the trigger? Did someone else, lead her to do it? Was someone else there that day? Did someone else hold her down, hold her arms down because it caused that bruising?
Right.
I'm never gonna know. I'm never gonna know what happened that day because of the lack of investigation. And you know, that's the sad part of it is, regardless of what I think or don't think about Tony, um, what law enforcement did and didn't do is ultimately what it comes down to of not knowing. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be a complete stranger that came in that house and did that, but we're never going to know because no testing was done, no evidence was collected. The little bit of evidence that was collected, which was the firearm, they no longer have that in custody. They gave it back to him. So while they say her case remains open, how can you have a case that remains open if you no longer possess the evidence that you collected? You can't have that.
And it was his. It, it was his firearm.
Yes, it was his firearm,
Okay.
and they gave it back to him at the beginning of this year.
Hmm. I can't believe that.
And that was before the sheriff's attorney says that the case remains open.
Well, we'll do this. I was gonna play something different, but I think maybe the first thing that we should play is Tony's statement, his his verbal statement, because you sent me over like the transcript too, but I figure we'll just play his like the whole interaction that was recorded. That way, people can listen to that part, and then we can kind of go into some of the other photos. Um, so just bear with me here, Jana. Let's see here. I think it is this one. I think possibly. Let me see.
This is Alan Irby, Chief Deputy with the West Carroll Sheriff's Office. Today's date is February the 9th, 2023. The time is 18:45 hours. The place is West Carroll Parish CID. I'll be taking a statement this afternoon from Tony Jones. Tony's a white male, gives his date of birth is 4/28/78, and resides at a residence located at 1438 Highway 2 in Oak Grove. I'll be taking the statement from Tony in reference to a self-inflicted gunshot wound of his wife, Miss Crystal McCrory Jones. Her date of birth is 5/17/79. Tony and Crystal were married for 5 years and lived together at 1438 Highway 2 in Oak Grove. Tony, would you state your name and date of birth for the recording, please?
Tony Joe Jones, 4/28/1978.
Tony, we responded to your residence this afternoon, the West Carroll Sheriff's Office investigators and deputies, in reference to your wife, Miss Crystal, and a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Could you walk me through your and her activities of today, starting from when you left your residence this morning?
I left the residence shortly after 8 o'clock. I went to Bastrop to a customer's house, Darren Billings in Bastrop. Worked on stuff for him, and I left there, and it was shortly before 10 o'clock or so. I called Crystal at 10:06 and she answered the phone, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And I stayed on the phone with her for 15 or 20 minutes, I say. And I had another job to do in Forest High School. So I went into town. I put a check in the bank. I turned around, and then I went to eat at Bakery Barn. I left there and went to Forest High School, and I was there till just shy of 3 o'clock. I got my daughter checked her out from school since I was already there at like 2:45, and I drove and I sent her a message saying, "Hey, I got little girl," and she didn't respond, what she normally does. Then I drove into town, and me and my daughter got something to eat at Sonic, and I tried to call her again, and she didn't answer. So then I contacted the East Carroll Medical Clinic because she had an appointment at 2:30, and I said, and this was like 3:45 or something, and I asked them, I said, my wife was supposed to have an appointment. Is she still there? And I gave them her name, and she's like, well, she never checked in. And so then I tried to call a couple more times, and I was real worried at that point. So I called Deputy Harris, who was my neighbor, and he said he was almost home, that he would go check. So he got there, and he said that no one was answering the door. Her vehicle was there. I was like, well, please go inside. The door is unlocked. He went inside, was calling her name. I said, the bedroom's in the very back of the house. And her name's Crystal. And so he's calling Crystal, Crystal, Crystal. And
were you still on the phone?
I was still on the phone with him. Okay. And he opened the door, and he said, Crystal, Crystal. And then at that point, he said, Tony, I'm sorry to tell you that she is deceased. And so then I rushed home.
Where were you
I was at
time?
the bowling alley, or by our karate school.
Okay.
I was at the karate school, and because we had class tonight, and so I was there waiting for her to get there, and she wasn't there by 4 o'clock. Then that's when I really started panicking, because she had been dealing with some depression, and like I said, that's what she was going to the doctor for.
That was her
appointment to go for the depression. She was on Abilify, and Amy Hale took her off of it, which is her doctor, and so now. And she was trying to come on. She said, I don't feel well. And I told her to call this morning. She set the appointment this morning. And so.
So she made the appointment for 2:30 this morning. Okay. When you talked to her on the phone at 10, how did she sound?
It took her a couple rings to actually get it. And I was like, she's like, hey. And I was like, hey. I said, what you doing? She's like, I was in the living room. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, sounded like you were asleep. And she's like, no, I wasn't asleep. I was just in the living room. So, and I talked to her. We sat on the phone for a few minutes, and she really wasn't saying anything. Because I talked to her while I drive a lot. And I talked to her while she's driving. And I was like, all right, well, I said, I'm going to get off here. You can get back to what you were doing. And she's like, okay. And I was like, I love you. And she said, I love you. And that's the last time I talked to her.
What handguns were available to her in the bedroom?
I don't know if in her purse there was a 9mm. I don't know if that's the one she used, but there was also a 45 on the nightstand. And that's the gun case was locked because I lost the key. So it was either the 9mm or the 45 was available.
It was, I think, a ECS.
Yeah, it's the one, that was the one she had. Yeah.
Frame. So that gun belonged to her.
Yes. Well, it was in my name, but that was the one she carried for protection.
Okay. And I talked to Deputy Crimes called while we were working the scene, and he told me that he had talked to you there at the karate school this afternoon. Did you see him at the high school?
Yeah, I was at the high school when I talked to him.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
I'm a maintenance handyman. AC repair, pretty much anything.
Okay.
I do a lot of work. I do all that, all the air conditioning and refrigeration for the school system.
Okay. Was Crystal right or left-handed?
She was right-handed.
All right. I believe that is all the information that I'm going to require from you, Tony. Is there anything that you would like to add or take away from the statement you've given me this evening?
I don't believe so.
Okay. In that case, we'll end this statement. The time now is 18:52 hours.
She battled depression all her life. That's pretty much the only thing that mama gave to her was depression.
That you heard that little part at the end there.
Yeah, that part at the end was unnerving to say the least. He didn't know he was still being recorded when he said that.
Yeah, and why didn't he continue to record him after he wanted to keep going into details about Crystal? You know, it was like what made me wonder why, you know,
Right. Stopped the
wow.
recording, but he kept talking, and he said, he said she was depressed her whole life. It's pretty much the only thing her mom ever gave her was depression. That like that's not in the transcription. You can look at the transcription, and it stops whenever he says that the interview stops. But when they handed that over, and I listened to the very end, that struck a nerve.
Yeah, it did me too. It did me too. It gave me the chills when I heard it. Just even listening to it over and over. 7 minutes. Um, hardly enough time to really get enough details, especially, yeah, seven
Well, he
minutes.
asked the Alan Irby, the interviewer, the investigator, asked him specifically if he was still on the phone with Chuck Harris, and Tony said yes, I was still on the phone with him. Well, in Chuck Harris's report, it says 3 different phone calls were made to Tony. He said he called him, told him where to go in the house to go to the bedroom. Then he hung up, and then he called him back again at like they said 16:41, so I guess 4:41. Um, and then he had to call him back again to tell him that she was deceased. So Tony says they were on the phone the entire time. Deputy Harris says that there was at least 3 phone calls made between him and Tony, and I never understood that. It might seem like something small, but to me, there's a discrepancy there. I would, one of them has to be telling the truth.
Right, exactly. And you just want to find the truth out.
Yes.
You know, I'm definitely picking that up from you. Like, that's all you really care about is finding out what the truth is. It's, whatever it may be. So I don't understand why everything is so secretive. Another thing that really bothers me is that he had zero emotion. I mean, no tears, no emotion. Um, I just wrote that and underlined it, because, I mean, to me, being with someone for 5 years, he has a little daughter. What am I going to tell my daughter? Like, there's just so many things that could be going through someone's mind, and he seemed very nonchalant.
Right. And I see people in the chat asking, how did he know the door was unlocked? And that's another thing is my sister never left the door unlocked for any reason at all, especially because they lived on the main highway.
Right. So she was worried that someone might be able to come in if the door was unlocked.
If she was by herself, or even if she wasn't by herself, her door always remained locked. I have no idea how he knew the door was unlocked. I have no idea why he led Deputy Harris straight to the bedroom and not to the kitchen or the bathroom or, to another room in the house, the laundry room. I have no idea.
Yeah, it just all happens. It all seemed to have been like boom, 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 boom. Like it was just, to me, it just seemed like scripted almost. Like they knew exactly what they were going to be doing. And it was just such a fast interview that I just don't see how they could have gotten any. Now, the picture that's in there of there's a yellow trash bag. It looks like a kind of just a little tiny trash can that you would have. Is that an entire bullet in the trash can?
I didn't even know that there was a bullet in the trash can. Like, I have no idea why that picture was even taken.
Yeah, there was like it looked like a full, like a whole bullet that was in the trash can. There wasn't a lot in the trash can. Very little
No,
was in there. There are so many things that I find really curious about the bedroom and the layout of the bedroom. Um, so and I'm getting ahead of myself, but Tony says that um, there was a phone call in the morning time that lasted about 15 to 20 minutes, and he doesn't mention that he was going to take his daughter out of school for the day. I guess I'm still wondering why he took her out of school for the day.
we have no idea. He said he was at the school, so he just checked her out, um, and took
But
her
he
with him.
texted Crystal and let her know that he
Yeah,
picked her up. But it wasn't planned out that he was going to pick her up.
no, obviously not, because he texted her, letting her know that he'd gotten her. So I guess maybe Crystal was the one that normally got her. They would ride from the house to the karate studio together or something, maybe, because she
Hmm.
was a big daughter.
Yeah, so did his daughter take karate too?
Yes.
And was she interviewed by police?
No.
How old is she, if you
Um,
don't mind me asking?
she is 17 now, so she was 15.
Okay, so she's 15 at that time. Thank you. So because I'm just trying to get a kind of a general, um, because when people do things that are out of the ordinary, it just kind of makes me wonder if that was an alibi being set up. Like, I was with my daughter knew where I was the whole day. But if she was never questioned, that's very
Yeah,
odd.
they didn't question anyone except for the guy he worked for that morning, but they only questioned him the day after Tony found the spent shell casing. So it was 10 days after she died before they even did that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, so, and if I was a detective, I would ask, why did you call the doctor? Like, why was your first? Because it's curious that she made the appointment that morning. It was set for 2 p.m., but then he calls the doctor's office to make sure that she made the appointment. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, he called to see if she made it to the appointment instead of just going to check on her. I mean, he was 12 minutes down the road. He could have easily went by the house to check on her. They had went to Sonic. They were around the Walmart area. I mean, there was 2 hours where he could have went and checked on her.
Right, exactly. And the jobs that he was doing, how far a distance are they from their home? Do you know?
The job he did that morning was 36 to 38 minutes from their home, and then the job at Forest High School was 12 minutes.
Okay, so Forest High School was 12 minutes away. But he still had someone else call. Or excuse
Yeah,
me, he still had the neighbor who really isn't kind of a neighbor do the well check.
yeah,
Okay. And that was the Deputy Harris.
right.
Okay. I'm just kind of trying to get a good idea because what you said earlier kind of sparked an idea um, that, well, other than the fact that he was 12 minutes away, but and the deputy checked, but then also I was trying to think if there was any way that he, because if you don't know a good TOD, the time of passing, then yeah, I mean, it could have 38 minutes, 36, that's not a far drive. 12 minutes isn't a far drive either, so there could have been some time in that area. Especially, I think it's weird. Did you guys kind of know that she was feeling the feelings of depression, or that she's going through that, or
We
tell me a
knew that
little bit about that.
she was sad because her son had moved out and joined the Navy. She was extremely excited, though, like in October when she got to go see him. Um, and she was extremely excited to see him graduate because he was graduating in February. As a matter of fact, he didn't come home for her funeral because he was a week away from graduating. So I talked to what I consider one of her best friends. She gave a statement to private investigators and she said it perfectly. Crystal was sad, but she wasn't depressed enough to kill herself. Was she sad because her son had left and she no longer
Yeah.
had her last baby at home? Absolutely. Um, did it drive her to taking her own life? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wrote hopeful down, so she was still hopeful because she was looking forward to her son graduating. Um,
Yes, and becoming a grandmother.
oh, and becoming a grandmother too. Okay, yeah, see. Um, wow. Yeah.
That baby is a doll. He
Oh.
from me. My nephew sent me a video of him opening up his Christmas presents, and it was those things called Little People, and it was
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah.
Noah's Ark version of it, and so he's hugging the giraffe in the video. He's just
Oh.
precious.
Oh my gosh, that is so sweet. So yeah, I just don't see that then. I don't see that. That's another piece that I guess doesn't add up. Um, yeah, I don't see her doing that. Okay. So there was a 45 on the nightstand and a 9 millimeter that were the two available. But he said that he didn't know which one, and that one was that what she carried it for protection. So she was about safety. So locking her doors would have been something that she would have typically done. Um, let's see. And then they also go on to say that Crystal is right-handed,
Yes, she
and
was.
then yeah, she's right-handed. And then they end the interview. I mean, he's like, okay, well, that's about all I need to know, which isn't a whole lot. Um, let's see. I'm gonna go to the chat and just see. Is there any questions that you wanted to answer in the chat at all, Jana? You can feel free to.
Yeah. First of all, thanks. There's so many people saying how brave I am for discussing these details. Because it's difficult. It is difficult, but um, it's part of the healing process to be able to discuss it and just kind of process everything that's happened. So I appreciate that. I do have some questions about anything other than the yes, Trishy. He did say she battled depression her entire life. It was the only thing that her mom gave her. That was his last statement. But they're asking about any kind of evidence collected at the scene, and I mentioned the pillow. There was a pillow that was placed over her head, that was had a shot singed to it, where you can see that the bullet had went through it. It was not collected for evidence. It was disposed of right along with the bed. Um, we don't know. We never knew that that happened. We didn't even know about the pillow until I did a public records request for the crime scene photos, and I was flipping through them, and then I came across this pillow that had a hole through it that's tucked under her arm, and someone someone who took those photos found that to be very important because they took 3 photos. It was either 3 or 4 photos of that pillow.
The
Um,
yellow pillow.
it was a gray pillow that had the singe marks on it where you could tell it had been shot through.
Okay.
Someone took those pictures and found it to be very important.
Sure.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken the pictures like that.
But they failed to take any pictures of her body, like the because like when I see people that have bruises on their knees, I think immediately that was like a fall of some sort.
Yeah.
Like push forward, or you know what I mean, because that's what's going to catch your fall is your knee, right?
Right.
Um that had the extensive bruising. And I just can't believe they wouldn't take any pictures of that. I just don't.
Yeah, there was no pictures taken of her extremities, like her hands or arms or anything like that. And then also, I don't normally release autopsy photos or anything like that because those are so private, but there's no pictures of those extremities taken in those photos either. So there's nothing to compare the bruising to because there was no pictures taken. You would get pictures of all the extremities and things like that, but um like her left arm, there's no pictures of it. We just have the pictures of the bruising from the funeral home.
Yeah, and I mean that's what's horrible is that's all we can put out to show that there was some sort of a violent altercation. There's no way that she did that to herself. There's no way. There it was too extensive. Um it was too extensive and fresh. And if she called in on the 7th, yeah, I just it's definitely not adding up. So in my opinion. Um okay. Let's see.
I have someone asking if the coroner did a write up when they arrived. Um, so the coroner did a coroner's report, but in the coroner's report, there's so many errors that we aren't sure if it's a report that's mixed up with another report. He puts the time down. So her body was supposedly found at 5:05 p.m. But the original time that was typed into that report was 10:30 a.m. So he took a marker or black pen, crossed it out, and put 5:05 p.m. And then they proceeded to do the report where he listed that my sister had seizures, pneumonia, diarrhea, and atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation is a disease of the heart. My sister
Mhm.
had none of those diseases, like none of them. He spelled her name wrong. Her death date was wrong. Her birth date was wrong. Um,
That's what I want to show real quick, Jana. I'm sorry. You can still talk. I'm going to play this. Um,
um, all of this stuff was wrong in the coroner's report. Then how many crime scene photos are available? There are less than 40 crime scene photos. I think there's around 35, and then autopsy photos there's only 18. But yeah, you can see on this report that's up there that it says that the date of her death was 2/9 of 20. She died in 23. It has the next page I think has atrial fibrillation and things like that that was wrong with her as far as medical diseases. She had none of those. Um, the
there
yeah,
we go.
insomnia, anxiety, atrial fibrillation, diabetic. Yeah, it says she was diabetic. Um,
That's
diarrhea,
crazy.
seizures, and she had none of those. My sister wasn't diabetic. Nothing like that. That explains nobody like that I could think of. Um, and then here's where the date was crossed, the time was crossed out. So it
Mhm.
says 10:35, and then he put 5:05 p.m. But here's here's the thing. It says that her body was found at 5:05 p.m. But if you go through and you look at the crime scene photos, there's times on the clocks that say 4:30 or 4:45 or like 4:59. Those times don't match that. It shows that her body was found before 5:05 p.m.
Right, because who took the pictures of the cell phone?
I'm assuming the investigator.
Right,
Um,
so on the nightstand table, that cell phone was sitting there, and he
that's
snapped a
right,
picture.
and it said 450.
Yes,
It was
ma'am. Yes, it did. Yeah,
4505. So that didn't make sense to me. And then on this page right here, it says um, marks and wounds. First, it says none, and then it says gunshot to to right side of head. And I mean, but they left the word none there.
right.
On her death certificate, it has her time of death listed as 11 a.m. And then it has that she was found on her right side, which she wasn't. She was found on her left side on her official death certificate, which was completely odd. Um, and then in
Definitely.
the a recorded interview with the sheriff, I'm probably getting way ahead. Um, the sheriff basically accused me of forging her death certificate because he said that there was no way that a time of death could be established in my sister's case, and that he could line up 10 professionals and they'd all tell me the same thing. And I recorded that conversation because something just told me to record it.
Yeah, that was smart. That was so smart of you. So very smart of you because you know, it it stinks that you have to do that, but at least you have that for peace of mind, and then also no one can dispute that, you know.
Yeah. And, if I was to tell someone that, a sheriff told me that, most people wouldn't believe me. Because, he said nobody could determine time of death, and it was his coroner that signed off on it. And I had to tell him that. That's probably most disturbing phone call I think I had in her case was trying to hold back during that phone call, because it was so unnerving to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is unnerving, but yeah, I don't blame you at all. I mean, um oh gosh, Jana, I am so sorry. I don't think
Sammy,
there are any words, you know.
Sammy asked what the cause of death was, and it was self-inflicted is what the cause of death was.
But here's my thing, and I wanted to read this really quick. Let's see here. Because I asked Google, let's see here. If a bullet is fired from the right hand, the shell casing will most likely land to the right and slightly behind the shooter due to the ejection mechanism of most firearms, which typically throws the casing out to the side opposite the shooter's dominant hand. But that's not where the shell casing was found.
No, it was found on the same side, about 7 feet to the right.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I mean, because that's the first thing I thought of to ask when reading the report. If she was, and I'm assuming that's why the detective asked which hand is her most dominant hand.
Yeah.
Um, so let me see here. That's what I wanted to pull in. So he said he left around 8 o'clock that morning, and Billings in went to Darren Billings in Backstrip, and that was the 36-minute drive, right? Or 38-minute drive. And then he called Crystal at 10:06. I just still think that was enough time for somebody to go to the house, and I don't know, it's just really strange, the series of events that day.
I agree.
And then it's not adding up with the trajectory of the bullet. Um, hey, Poppy, good to see you. Good to see everyone. Reach for the sky. It's good to see all of you guys tonight. Thank you for coming in. Okay. Yeah, and in the investigative report, which I didn't get a chance to redact, so I didn't want to put it up on the screen, but it says the report date was 2/13/23, and they did say it was an investigative report. The incident type is self-inflicted by a firearm. And 9/20, excuse me, 2/9/23. And was Deputy Harris on the phone with Tony or no?
We don't know. Deputy Harris said that he made 3 different phone calls to him, but Tony says they were on the phone the entire time. And if you
Right.
go to Deputy Harris's report, he has to call him back 2 different times to tell him that she didn't open the door, or that she didn't come to the door. That's when he, advised him to go into the house, into the bedroom, and then he called him back again to tell him that she was deceased. But Tony says that he was on the phone the entire time with him. They never hung up, and I don't know how relevant that is to the entire investigation, but it just goes to show another discrepancy that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, and I'm just wondering too, because since Deputy Harris was the one that found everything that had happened that day, did he call for assistance at that point, or?
I believe he called. They said, I guess, that he called the sheriff's department and maybe the coroner's office. Um, that's why we asked for cell phone records for those involved that day, just so we would know. It would tell a story, and it would actually give us peace of
Right.
mind to know, who called and who didn't call, or um, we asked specifically for cell phone records at the very beginning, just to clear some of this stuff up, to see who was telling the truth or not, and we just could get nowhere with it.
Right. Yeah, because it's really confusing. And then because Alan Irby was the one that conducted the interview, and then
Right.
this is his report I'm looking at. Source of complaint, Deputy Harris was the source of the complaint. Because even in this, on 2/9/3 at approximately 16:25, 16:35, 100 hours, that would be 4:35. A death by firearm at the address of, and I'll redact the address, but it was in Oak Grove. This residence of Tony and Crystal Jones. I responded to the residence along with Chief Investigator. I'm sorry, guys, it's really, really, really small. Chief Investigator David Voigt, Sheriff Scott Matthews, and Police Chief Louis Bubba Russell. And
Yeah, and
upon arrival, oh, sorry, go ahead, Janet, go ahead.
there are no reports from them, like Chief Bubba Russell, David Boyd. I've never seen a report from them.
Okay, right, and they're the ones that were responding that day.
Right, and I've never seen anything that they wrote up, or I don't. And I was there the entire time at the crime scene, until they
You
brought her body out.
were? Oh,
Yeah, and so I don't remember seeing them. Like, I remember seeing 2 officers there, and that's it.
well, that's no good. That's no good. 'Cause even in this, on 2/9/3 at approximately 16:25, 100 hours, that would be 4:35. 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 100 Yeah, it says they arrived approximately 16:49, which would have been 4:49. Um, we met Deputy Charles Chuck Harris. According to Deputy Harris, Tony Jones has called him by cell phone and asked that he go by the Jones residence to check on his wife. Apparently, Mr. Jones could not reach his wife by cell phone and became concerned when he learned his wife did not make a 2:30 doctor's appointment in Lake Providence. But typically, the doctor's office will call you if you miss your appointment, not your spouse, right? Like, he didn't get a call
No,
from
he
them,
called.
or do you know?
No, he Googled the phone number and called himself.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, in my opinion, that really stinks. We locate Mrs. Jones in her and her husband's bed in the master bedroom, suffering from what appeared to be a gunshot wound to the head, and Mrs. Jones was deceased. Deputy Harris and Mr. Jones was at the Joneses Karate School in Oak Grove, awaiting his wife's arrival to start their evening class, and Mrs. Jones never arrived at the karate school. So they would teach karate at their karate school,
Right.
and that's where he was with his daughter. So it says, upon entering the residence, I observed an adult female dressed in a bathrobe, and she was lying in a normal position in the bed. Um, quick question, Jana, is that typical? Like, would your sister take earlier showers, or was it like right before she would leave to go someplace?
Right before she would leave to go somewhere, she would take a shower. Then she would put on a robe. Then she would do her makeup because she didn't want to get makeup on her clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would get dressed after she got her makeup done. So she would do her hair and makeup in a robe and then get dressed. So if you're looking at the pattern of her day that day, it looked like had just put on makeup because she had eyeliner on. So she got out of the shower, put her robe on, was putting her makeup on, and then it just looks like she laid down to take a nap, and that was it.
Right.
Because she would have never been found clothed the way that she was. Her pride, her dignity would have never. She would have had clothes on, like not just what she had on, which was a robe and underwear.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that kind of really stood out to me. That's why I wanted you to kind of help me out, just because, you know her so well. Um, yeah, okay. That's it. It's odd. It's definitely odd. So this seemed to have occurred closer to the morning time. Would you say that kind of points towards there?
Yeah, it was definitely. And the another thing is her toxicology report. When it came back, she had uh, some pretty decent traces of caffeine in her system, which means
Mm-hmm.
that she drank like a cup of coffee. She wasn't really a big coffee drinker, but she would drink either coffee or like an energy drink. So
Mm-hmm.
she was getting ready for her day because she had consumed caffeine.
Right, exactly. Okay, that's really important too. Thank you. Because, yeah, I mean, that just says that, well, it makes sense, like you said, she's getting ready, she's putting makeup on, she's drinking her coffee. Sounds like a really normal routine, for anybody. Um, did she typically stay in her bathrobe for a long period of time during the day, or was it something just,
So
okay.
um, just to use her bathrobe, just to get out of the bathtub, just long enough to put makeup on, and then to get ready. And then she would switch to. I mean, if she was standing around the house, she would probably switch to like pajamas or something like that. But she didn't
Mm-hmm.
stay in her bathrobe long.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, let's see. Items observed on the nightstand would indicate Mrs. Jones would probably normally sleep on that side of the bed. So in the pictures, guys, just to kind of give you a little bit of context, the nightstand table that you saw, um, they're saying that that was located on the west side of the room.
But was it now on the west side?
Yeah, like her bedside table would have been on the west side of the room. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And then her vanity that you can kind of see in that one corner, and it looks like she kind of had like a little, kind of like a cute little area where she would get dressed and things like that.
Yeah, that's where they said the casing was supposedly found.
Right. And that was on the west side of the room?
Yeah, it was further west.
Right. Even further west than her bedside table.
Right.
Okay. And then just going back to bullet trajectory. Yeah.
And someone had asked if it had gone all that time without being cleaned. No, the casing was found even after cleaners came through. So you had five. They said 5 sets of eyes is what the sheriff said. So 5 people from the sheriff's department had come through looking for it, and then the cleaners came through to clean everything up, and then the husband came back in and moved in and found it. And
Right.
then
And where he found it was right on her vanity.
on her vanity, and then someone's asking if they checked for gunpowder residue on hands. No, no gunpowder residue testing was done at all on anyone. No DNA testing was done. No fingerprinting. Nothing.
Right. So not even on Crystal. They didn't check for gunpowder residue. Her hands looked really, really clean. Obviously, that's something that we probably aren't going to be showing. But I'm here to tell you, it didn't look like there was any, I think it's like patina is what they call it. There was nothing, it didn't look like she had fired the gun, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey Jude, they didn't even test hers. Um, and that would have. I know gunshot residue testing is not 100% accurate all the time because you can have it on your hands just because the gun was fired within the room. But
Mm-hmm.
the pattern of gunshot residue could have told us a lot if they would have just tested her hands, and they didn't. The stippling, there was no stippling.
Thank you.
The,
Stippling was the word I was looking for. Thank you so much, Jana. Oh my gosh.
there's no stippling on her because the pillow was there to stop the stippling. So those little singes or the little burns burnt the pillow.
Right. But if they're going to rule that she took her own life, how did they not at least cover that base? That just doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And we were told that her hands were bagged when she was sent off for an autopsy. And I did confirm with the pathologist through an email, so I have the proof that her hands were never bagged.
Yeah, that's just that's unbelievable. I mean, this is one for Nancy Grace. Hey Jude says, have you guys reached out to any of the mainstream? I mean, I understand it's a
Yeah.
difficult subject.
So we've reached out to Dateline, 2020 48 hours. Um, a lot of people have reached out through Dateline through the Facebook group because you can request cases even if you're not, a relative. Um, Someone put it on YouTube, not YouTube last night, Twitter um, last night, and they got a response back, a comment back from Nancy Grace. So that did happen last night. So hoping
Good.
that um, she gets a hold of it, and there, all she can do is tell the story, just like you guys are doing. But the more people that tell the story and then tell the story with facts, then the better it is to get Crystal's case out there. And even if we don't ever solve Crystal's case, um, and we don't ever know exactly what happened to her, maybe it'll put forth some practices and protocols like nationwide that this doesn't happen to another family. Like the the investigative part, like they'll have to actually investigate it and not rule it self-inflicted so soon. You know, treat it as um, you know a death that was caused by someone else until you can prove it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just the proper testing, like you said, to test for the gunshot residue and things like that. I mean, to me, that would be pretty standard. Or to make sure that there were. What about like? Was there any other? Obviously, his fingerprints would have been on a gun registered to him. But did they do any type of testing in that regard?
No, no testing like that was done. They did a ballistics test that matched the casing, the spent shell casing, to the projectile that they dug out of the wall. The only problem with that is that they misidentified the gun. The news reporter from KNOE that ran her story on November 25th of this year ran the serial number through the database, and it wasn't an EC9, Ruger EC9, it was a Ruger LC9. So they misidentified the gun. And to me,
Right.
that's a big deal. If you're doing ballistics testing, at least know the exact gun that you're handling.
Right. Wow. And she was able to uncover that detail. You didn't know that before.
Yeah, we didn't know that before.
Wow, that is really, really something. Hats off to her for finding that because, yeah, so that news report was okay from just, all right. Wow. I'm trying to think of any other. So basically, it seems like they didn't do very much to figure out if this was actually self inflicted or if someone had done this. Wow.
No, they didn't. And that was all I asked for. The night that she passed away, I texted my sheriff from my parish because had worked for them before, like with my undergraduate degree. So he and I are pretty close. And I sent him a text, which I saved, and it said, I know it's out of your jurisdiction, but my sister passed away tonight. And can you call over to West Carroll Parish and make sure that they investigate this as a homicide until they can prove that it's not? And he said, yeah. He said, I'm flying in, and I'll reach out to him tomorrow. And he did. He kept his word. But once he did that, the lead investigator, Alan Irby, would never
Mhm.
talk to me. He said that I was a troublemaker, and so he would only talk to my oldest brother and not to me. Had he talked to me, I would have had his conversations recorded too. But yeah, he all because I just wanted it investigated the proper way. He would never talk to me, and then to this day, he's never talked to me.
Well, it's not making trouble to ask questions about things that don't make sense. You know what I mean? Yeah, he would. I'm sorry that happened because that's ridiculous. If, as you said in the interview, you just want to be you wanted to be treated like they would treat their family, right? And
Right.
he wouldn't appreciate his family being treated that way, I don't think. So, especially, um, you're absolutely tenacious and smart and intuitive. So, troublemaker is the last, adjective I would use to just, describe you. I think that what you're doing is brave, and I think that there's some really legitimate concerns and questions here. Um, Even Megan L says her hands definitely should have been tested. There would have been a considerable amount of residue on the hand that was used, if used.
Right.
I can't argue with that. Yeah, it sounds like they did trust the husband's story, Trishy. I agree. They really took it as at face value. Um, the the total investigation didn't last very long, in my opinion. Not, I mean, do you think that he might have kind of fed them a narrative about
Um,
the
that's,
depression?
yes, 100%. That narrative was there from the very beginning, and I think there's a crime scene photo of a prescription bottle. It's very blurred. You can't
Hmm.
even see what the prescription is, but I'm 99% sure they took a picture of a pill bottle that was an antidepressant, and it was just to feed that narrative that because she was on antidepressants, she was, you know, going to take her own life. And to me, that is so cliche because I take antidepressants, and there's nothing in this world that would make me want to leave my girls and my husband. I mean, there's nothing. So many people
Exactly.
take antidepressants for so many different reasons.
I really didn't like that was blurred out like that, because it really raised, questions for me. I didn't understand, it just felt like it was part of just a narrative they were building up. I have a suspicion that this happened in the morning time sometime, after the 10 o'clock phone call, um, perhaps before he went to pick his daughter up from school. Do you know what time he picked his daughter up from school?
2:46, I believe.
2:46. And that would have been after, well, around the time that he called the doctor's office. What time do
About
you know what time he called the doctor's office?
he Google searched it at 4:10 or 4:16, and then he
Okay.
in his interview with the police he said he called around 3:45, but he didn't Google search the number until like 4:10. So he didn't call it. I mean, I don't have his phone records, but he didn't call until after he Google searched it because that only makes logical sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that would have been, about an hour and a half. Well, a little over the time of the interview. It's just really strange, that whole piece too, that calling the doctor's office to make sure she went. Yeah, that doesn't. Do you think that part of her depression was due to the things that he was saying and doing to her, or?
Absolutely, and I feel like she felt isolated from her family. I'm not going to try to say that she didn't, because compared to 2 years prior, before he moved her away to Mississippi and then to Oak Grove, we saw each other all the time. We spent almost every day together when we could, um, and she felt isolated from her family. And it wasn't. I don't think it was a choice of her own. I really don't.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times people will, um well, they do that for a lot of reasons, but it's mainly to have control, and then, um
Right. Because even
yeah,
when
just eat up your time.
she lived in New York, like I said, when I was younger, and even then, I I feel like she was less isolated from us, and that she lived 32 hours away,
Mhm.
drive time, and I didn't feel isolated from her. Like I didn't feel like someone was taking her from me or anything like that. And this was just different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you felt it more. You felt it more.
Let's see.
Um,
Keith is asking, is this case active or cold? If you don't mind me asking. So this is where we're at there. Uh, Obviously, it was closed whenever they issued me the public records request because they only give you public records request if a case is closed. However, when my private investigator, the last one I hired, started doing public records requests for their employee files and certain things with the sheriff's department, like their policies and procedures manual. and things like that, the sheriff obtained an attorney, and that attorney sends a letter out that says this case remains open. So it went from closed to remains open. Well, I did a FOIA request because I was asking what the status of her case was just last week, and I couldn't get a response through email, through text. So I did a FOIA request, and I got back this document from the sheriff that says there's no status of the case. So I don't know whether her case is open. I don't know whether it's closed. He simply says there is no status for the case.
What does that even mean then? There's no status. That's really odd. Why would
Because I have no idea. But that was his response to me, was that there was no status, no update on the status of her case.
no updates, but it may or may not be open.
Yeah, it may or may not be open. And there's no one actively investigating it. And Star asked if anyone else in my family rallies behind me in the fight. Oh, absolutely. My entire family. It's not just me. There's certain things that I don't want my family members to ever see. Crime scene photos is one. So I take on that role in making sure that they're protected from it. Like my oldest nephew, he supports us 100%, stands behind what we do, what we advocate for. But I don't send him the YouTube links. I don't do that because I don't want him to have to relive losing his mom. So I have my entire family, my mom, both of my brothers that rally behind me. But there's just certain things that I protect them from.
That's so extremely brave and strong of you. Like I mean, for you to have been there that day, and even Trishy says, Jana, you're such a hero for your sister, and you are. Um, yeah, I mean, to be the one that's protecting everybody is like you're a warrior, you know.
She would have done the same for me. Star's asking if there was any way to get internal affairs involved. I reached out to Louisiana State Internal Affairs in March of 2023 through their website. I went through their complaint form. I never got a response back. So
Yeah,
district
you were
attorney,
saying that last time. Yes, I remember you saying that. Ugh.
I guess there's someone else asking if that was a possibility. That's absolutely not. We went through the district attorney. I actually have it recorded, and she told us that common sense will tell you your brother-in-law knew what he was going home to that day. That's why he called to have a welfare check done. Um, and that's pretty much all we got out of her was that statement. And I still
Right.
don't know what she thinks about that statement.
Yeah. That's
Sorry, you
crazy.
should ask.
Like you just said, Vapor, he and the sheriff basically called me a liar in one conversation. Yeah. Um, that's so uncalled for when all you're looking for is the truth. The truth shouldn't be that hard if this was in fact something that was a tragic decision made by Crystal, but I don't believe that that's the case. I really don't. I don't believe that that's the case.
And she
Because I
said,
did look at this case. I understand I'm emotionally invested in some aspects, but I did look at Crystal's case just very objectively, just kind of going through it and trying to piece it all together. When it doesn't fit, um, there's nothing that there's nothing I can say to that. You know, I can't get up here and say, well, you know, we should just close this up and never talk about it. You know, if I felt like that was the case, I would have you talk about the horrible things that she went through and that pushed her to decide this. But that's not how I feel. I feel like it's very suspicious. And I feel like she deserves to get the justice that she deserves from it, at least an unbiased investigation. Can you tell me a little bit more about that aspect of it?
so Chief just mentioned, he said it sounds like this case should have been handed to another agency, which I'm not 100% sure, but I think he can make a request for that. Um, the problem with that is in the state of Louisiana, and Louisiana is like a country of its own. In order for the state police to become involved, they have to be invited in by the parish, and the parish would not invite them in. So, due to them not having an invitation, I can't invite them in. They have to invite the sheriff does. They couldn't. They couldn't take the case, and I know that sounds crazy, but we did
Hmm.
look it up. That's absolutely correct. Um, and Megan Nails, I think is the name, said a lawyer with the district attorney for all the records. We did hire two attorneys. They did forward a request to the district attorney and to the sheriff's department for all records. And when I say all records, I mean all files, documents, body cam footage, dash cam footage, audio recordings, and everything that I gave you guys is all that we got. There was no dash cam footage or body cam footage or nothing of that sort was turned over.
Wow. And they do wear body cams there.
I'm assuming they do. I mean, it's the state of Louisiana, and at the very least, dash cams.
Right. Yeah. I think everybody has those, but I just wanted to be, double check. I'll check that out too.
Appreciate
But
that.
you would think they would though. I mean,
The Ellen Greenberg case, I'm super familiar with that case because it's really
mhm.
similar to Crystal's case. Um, and to me, that case should be open and shut from the very beginning. Yes, paper. Remember Luke 12:2.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the first case that came to mind when when you set Crystal's case over. I'm like, oh my gosh, I told the mod chat, I'm like, hey guys, do you guys know who Ellen Greenberg is? And we were talking about it. Um, because it's so very similar and it just doesn't make sense. And her parents have been on Nancy Grace, and Nancy Grace has done really great coverage on it, of course. So I would love to see her do
And
some
that's the thing.
investigating.
There are so many cases. Like when we went to Washington D.C., I gave a statement. And the statement's on my TikTok and in my YouTube videos. The full statement where I read something to uh, Senator Bill Cassidy's councilman, and I mentioned that my sister's case is not unique. Like Crystal's case is not unique at all because in every town, in every city or whatever across the United States, you're going to have a case similar to hers where it's not investigated properly or it's quickly ruled self-inflicted. Um, and I've Googled and searched so many of those cases and advocated with some of the families. Um, and it's just sad because you should have a blanketed policies and procedures manual nationwide that this is what you follow when you have a, a death that whether it be gunshot or something else is used, but to do an investigation you should go by these steps, and apparently that doesn't exist. Each state is on its own, each city is on its own in the investigation portion, and they can do what they want.
Yeah, and I mean, for them not to do any type of testing at all, it seems like in this case, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially just like little details that pop out at me. Like I said, her being in a bathrobe. They're trying to say that this happened in late afternoon, early evening. It seems like, or they're not clear.
Right.
Um, yeah, Vinny Politan. He has a podcast on YouTube. Um,
Yeah, you guys can share her case with anybody that's willing to listen. Just because, like I said, I don't understand why she wasn't worth more than an hour and 45-minute long investigation. Because had it been their family members, they would have been turning tables, flipping chairs, digging through trash cans to find out, what really happened.
exactly, and they should be. They should be. Trushi says these families fighting similar battles. It can help us at least feel not alone. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, or help women that are in a similar situation get out of it, because it's not easy. And it's fully a decision that that person has to make on their own. No one can help them, or I mean, people will help. You'll have a support system, but it just has to be a decision that you make, when you're ready to do that. I just can't believe that he wasn't questioned about any type of an altercation within the last couple of days.
right.
Um, yeah, that's my biggest thing because of those pictures. Like, I just keep um, going back to that, because I mean, it's not their first rodeo, right? They're seasoned officers. Um, so why didn't they press that more, I guess?
Right.
Um, that just doesn't make any sense.
Well, there was a case. My sister died February 9th of 2023. April the 23rd. I could be wrong about the exact date, but I believe it was April 23rd. Um, just 2 months after that she passed away, in the same little small town, a woman called in to the sheriff's department stating that her husband had unalived himself, same manner, self-inflicted gunshot, and they came out and they immediately turned it over to the state police. And state police ended up investigating it and determined that the wife had actually done it. But my point was that the state police was immediately called in. My sister's case is the only one in that manner that I can find that the state police weren't immediately called in for.
Right, because yeah, like you stated earlier, if the state police had come in, but they can't just take over jurisdiction, they have to be
Right.
invited. And how deep does the relationship go with law enforcement and Tony? Like, I understand that he wasn't able to make it through, but
Um, ac- According to him and Chief Deputy Alan Irby, they had known each other for 20 years.
oh,
If you go back to some Facebook posts that Tony had posted regarding if you have any concerns about me leaving town or what happened the day Crystal died, you can contact me, and something about rumors. And then if you go into the comments, you can see Chief Deputy Alan Irby's wife hearting it and putting hearts in the comments. So his relationship with law enforcement there runs deep. It's on a very personal level,
right.
which is why we begged in that in the conversation we had with Sheriff Scott Matthews, we begged to have an unbiased investigation done from the very beginning. Um, and that was simply it. We weren't accusing them of doing a horrible job. We just
Right.
wanted it biased.
Right. Yeah, you just wanted the same respect that anybody else would get. You'd want the same. Well, it really comes down to policy and procedures. You
Because
know,
you have to have policies and procedures for everything. I mean, you open a brand new toothbrush and there's a procedures manual on how to use it. Policies and procedures go with everything these days. Otherwise, we'd have complete chaos.
absolutely. And I've known. Well, I'll just. I'll put it this way. If Oh gosh, I'm trying to be careful with how I say it. I guess what it comes down to is exactly what you said. If it was their family member, they would want a certain things done, and I just don't understand how they could rule in favor of one thing or another without doing proper testing to back that theory up. Um, and also, the medical examiner is a doctor, so sometimes they're not always, but this person is, right?
Yes, the coroner is not a doctor, but the medical examiner was.
but the medical examiner was. And and was it the medical examiner who wrote the list of like different diagnoses, but they weren't true, like the diabetes and the
So that was
seizure?
the coroner, but the medical examiner's report,
Okay.
which was the autopsy report, his was riddled with errors too. Yeah, of course, he also had her name spelled wrong, but he
Mm-hmm.
listed her eye color and her hair color were both wrong. He said that there were internal organs that she had that she didn't have. For example, she had a hysterectomy months before she passed away, but he listed her female organs as intact. And then she had 12 years ago, she had a horrible car accident that left her in like a turtle brace because she had broken like 2 or 3 vertebrae in her back.
Oh.
And and then in prior injuries to that part of her body, it was listed as none, that there were no prior injuries, which doesn't make sense. And then the worst thing was that there were 2 different case numbers on her autopsy, 0125 and 0126.
What happened there?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, yes. No, I just asked, did they ever explain that to you, or act, why
I, I sent
that
an email
happened?
not this Christmas, but last Christmas. I was really like, I guess, just in my feelings about not having her there. So I sent the medical examiner, Dr. Peretti, an email through my Gmail account, and I was simply explaining to him the list of errors that were wrong on her autopsy report. And he responded back through email and acknowledged that some of those things were wrong, said that there was a transcription error, and in his notes it had her hair listed as this color and her eyes. He changed the spelling of her name. He even said in his notes he had it listed that she had a hysterectomy, that he just forgot to put that in the report. Um, and he actually changed her autopsy through an email without even like validating who I was. Without having the body in front of him, he made changes to her autopsy report, which I thought was strange because I had to jump through hoops just to get a copy of it. Um,
Right.
but yeah, he actually changed her autopsy report through email, which I didn't think was possible.
Right. I mean, I just can't believe they didn't do a more thorough job, and then also, scratching things out, and just all of these discrepancies. Like, there's almost too many to count. I mean, it's like, what did they get right is probably a better question than what they didn't get right.
Right.
And I unnamed true crime channel says the department should have rescued and had another agency investigate conflict of interest. That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Here's a link for Chris McDonough, the Cold Case Foundation link. Thank you, Trishy. Thank you, Hey Jude. You guys are awesome. And don't forget to link Jana's other pages too in there if you can. Thank you guys so much. I haven't been paying as good of attention to the chat just because there's just been so many things that are kind of running through my mind at once. Um,
Someone asked, I said that I mentioned that he was now engaged. Did he date soon after, or did he take some time before? So Forever Nikki, what happened was she died February the 9th. And he Google searched on February the 14th at 11:59 p.m. February 13th, 11:59 p.m. So like a minute before Valentine's Day. And I know that's super specific, but I've looked at these things forever. His Google search was, when is an appropriate time to date after the death of a spouse? So 5 days after she passed away, that was his Google search.
wow.
When when is an appropriate time to date after the death of a spouse?
would be my question. Because to me, that's like, you're just worried about, that's, interesting wording, but when is it appropriate time? As if to say, what are other people going to think about me if I'm already dating so
Right.
soon after? You know what I mean? I agree, unnamed true crime channel. X is also a great way to get traction. Trishy says, we can tag all the important players in these cases. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, guys. Thank you. Hey, Jude. Yeah, I wasn't kidding around like when I said we have, people who are just ready and willing to go to bat here. Crystal's army has been working all day behind the scenes, chatting about stuff, and just how we could have made this like the most successful live that we could have. So, um, she just means the world to us, and it's mind-boggling that she could have just fallen through the cracks like this, because I don't see how they've done anything that could have helped find out what happened to her. I mean, besides just writing it off, like she went ahead and did that herself.
Right.
And Forever Nikki's mom says, Lord, that is horrific. He's a walking red flag, in my opinion. I agree.
Without a doubt.
I agree. I don't see any. I just don't see any way that she would have done this to herself with everything that she had to look forward to. And I really don't like that statement at the end that he made. And then they just cut the recording off. I think that would have helped out tremendously had they had him elaborate and then ask maybe some follow-up questions. It just seemed very scripted, kind of, oh, well, I guess we're done. The interview was, I mean, yeah, it was so brief. And then there was like an absence of grief and absence of urgency. I mean, it was kind of like, well, I don't know which firearm was used, and I don't know, oh well, kind of thing. And to me, that just isn't somebody. It's just not a normal reaction.
Wow.
It's not somebody who cares about what just happened to their spouse. And then especially with her having his name in there as Tony My Love, like that, like she loved him so much. And where was that love at from his point of view? And then the 5 days later, I don't even know who does that even at all, let alone, it just, to me, the wording is everything. When is it appropriate? Like, as if somebody's going to look at him and think twice. And the Facebook posts, yeah. The time frame he should, or Googling the time frame he could just want to know how to phrase it, what to tell his friends and family so he doesn't look suspicious, in my opinion.
True.
Yeah, that's really stands out, especially 5 days. I mean, that is no time later. Megan L says, I wonder if the updated autopsy report with the addition of hair color, eye color, name spelling, and internal organs were dated when entered, because if you can't see what organs she has and doesn't. Oh, you are credible enough to tell me how she passed away. Right. Oh, you are, excuse me, you aren't credible enough to tell me how she passed away. Absolutely. Um, I mean, there's way too many details wrong, way too many, and then you couldn't, get a fresh. If you're making that many mistakes, why didn't you just get a fresh sheet of paper and start all over again? Like, it's so sloppy,
Right.
in my opinion, totally sloppy. Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice, Star. Wouldn't it be nice if we had like a scarlet letter only for red flags?
Right.
Oh, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. Margaret says everyone involved should go to prison. I believe that too. I think that there's um, too many inconsistencies here. And then not enough testing to make heads or tails before you're going to just go off and make that sort of a ruling. Megan Nels says, I swear I dislike the way the death certificates are completed these days, period. Even my mom, who passed from cancer, was weirdly written. Oh, I'm sorry, Trishy. Yeah, it's just weird. It's like, it's very unprofessional at the very least. And more like inhumane, because like, I just keep going back to what you say, Jana, is like, if that was their family members, they would want it handled properly. Um, you know, it sounds very rushed through.
Yeah. Trishy's asking, was the ME elected in that county? So the coroner was elected in that county. The medical examiner was actually um, in Arkansas, even though she passed away in Louisiana. They sent her to Arkansas. And Megan Ellis, we can't have her exhumed because he had her cremated against our wishes. So there's no possibility for a second autopsy.
Why did they send her to Arkansas? Because they didn't have a medical examiner available there, or?
I'm not sure. We have medical examiners in Baton Rouge, and that I'm not quite sure why they sent her to that particular medical examiner, other than the private investigator did find out maybe he was the cheapest because the parish did pay for her autopsy.
Okay.
Um, I'm not quite sure why they used him
And you didn't have a chance to do an independent autopsy because
because he had
she
her
was
cremated.
cremated. How did that transpire? Was he, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, did he go straight to and make the funeral arrangements, or?
So we made the funeral arrangements. We met him there to make the funeral arrangements together. Um, and he didn't want her at first. He didn't want service at all. Just a cremation or whatever. And so we argued kind of back and forth that I wanted a viewing, so people could come and say their goodbyes and things like that. And he
Right.
said he couldn't afford it, and he was going to have to take out a loan. And so that's when the funeral director suggested a GoFundMe account because she had no life insurance. And he said he didn't know how to create one of those. So I was like, well, I do. So I created the GoFundMe, and that's what the money
Mhm.
was used for. We bought flowers and um, pictures because her oldest son. The only thing he requested was that we have a ton of pictures at the services, and so that's what we did. We had tons of pictures with her and the loved ones, um, and we had to go buy her everything from a dress to undergarments to socks to to for the viewing because all of the stuff when my sister-in-law went to their house to pick out an outfit, all of her her stuff was being packed up. So we had to go buy all that new stuff. And
Who
then
was packing her stuff up?
I guess he was because all there was some hoodies hanging in the closet, but like her dress clothes and stuff were all packed away.
What did he do
But
with it?
he put it in a storage shed. So we got no access to any of that because I
What?
went because I wasn't given money from the GoFundMe account because I went and bought her a headstone because I wanted her to be laid to rest at some place. So we were going to bury a portion of her ashes in the cemetery and put her headstone. but instead her headstone sits in my backyard because we
Mm.
don't have a place, that we don't have anything to bury.
Well, what
So he
happened to me that he said he had before? Like,
do what now?
I mean, because he was saying that he had all kinds of money and everything like that. Like when they first got
Right.
together, that he would,
No. Yeah.
what an ass.
And in the state of Louisiana, doesn't matter if you've been with someone a year, 5 years, 25 years, your spouse is your next of kin. So they get to make all the final decisions.
Right. That was my next question. Okay. Because, yeah. Now, if she would have had like a will in order, is that still the case? Do you know?
I think it goes with the will, like your last will and testament. It
Yes.
goes by, but in this case, she didn't have any of that.
So it automatically went to him, and then he decides like immediately to pack her things up and put them in a storage. He didn't want to. Um.
We weren't allowed to go through any other stuff. We didn't get anything from her. The only thing that we have when we did her hair and makeup was we cut some small locks of her hair. I don't know why we did it, but I'm glad we did. And then I had necklaces made with her hair, like you have a necklace that has ashes in it, but instead
Mhm.
her hair is in the necklace. So I got one made for my mom, myself, and then my two daughters.
That's really sweet. I can't believe he didn't let you guys take any of her things that were special to you, or something that reminded you of her. That's like absolutely sickening.
Right, and forever Nikki's mom is asking, did he ever try to get life insurance on her, or is this known? So he was under the impression that there was a life insurance policy on her. The day after she passed away, he called State Farm, which is where she worked at, inquiring about a $64,000 group term life insurance policy. But the problem was she hadn't been back at work long enough for it to become effective. So he couldn't cash out on it because it wasn't in effect yet. She had only been back to work for like 3 weeks prior to
Mm.
her death. So once they told him that, he was kind of taken aback, and then actually went up to State Farm to inquire about it again. And they had to tell him again that the policy wasn't effective yet. She hadn't been there long enough. So he thought she had a life insurance policy.
Right, because she was an insurance agent.
Right.
Mm. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I can't fathom how someone couldn't look at this case and see all of the errors and all of the red flags galore. I mean, yeah. Oh, they're talking about the Micah Miller case too. Um, okay. Wow. I mean, I'm completely blown away. Like the more that you tell, the more that it just it's just so horrible. Renee says, I'm so sorry you and your family have been through this nightmare.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry too. I'm really sorry, Jana. I mean, I just wish that there was something that we could do like to spring into action more than what we're doing, but like it's just one of those things where it's just so blatantly on or obvious that what's happened here. I mean, if somebody's that cold that they can't wait to allow the family members to come in and take things that are special and sentimental value to them. I just, so he just pays for the storage unit to keep all of her things in it? I don't
Yeah.
understand that. Just so you guys won't get it.
just so we won't touch it. Yeah.
Wow. And how long did it take you guys to raise the funds to have her a proper viewing and everything like that?
So in the GoFundMe, there was, I believe, $3,500 to $4,000 raised, and I paid $1,000 towards the funeral home, and then we bought all the flowers, we bought her outfits, the pictures, everything she needed, and then we used the last of that money to do the headstone. After I got the laptop and I found all the things on that laptop that I found in the dating websites and the Google searches, I refused to give him the last of the money that was raised because he was responsible for the payment. I wasn't.
Right.
And after that, I refused to give him the money, so I bought the headstone. And he did try to sue me through GoFundMe or try to file a complaint that I didn't spend the money appropriately. But of course, as you can probably see, I had receipts for every single thing. And because I did, GoFundMe sided with me and they closed the case. He thought he was going to get money out of the GoFundMe.
Wow, he's a real peach. Okay. That's just crazy. That's just crazy. It's just ugh. So were you able to like reach out to any of the people that he was seeing at that time, or um like was he acting upon the website, or was he kind of just talking to other people, if you don't mind
Oh,
me
I'm not sure. We just were able to see that he had an account and that he had been logged into them. But once he kind of figured out that I had access to that stuff, he changed passwords, so I wasn't able to get into anything.
asking? Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean that would have been pretty telling too. I mean that goes to motive too. You know, that's one of the motives that's as old as time, really. That there was somebody else. And then money too. If he thought he was going to get some sort of an insurance payout, then that would be a motive too.
Right.
Um, man, was there any indication that she was planning on maybe leaving him, or was she still just really head over heels for him?
Um, her tracking his location and things for the last 2 weeks. We're not really quite sure what her plan was. To be honest with you, and the arguments that they were having, uh, we're just not sure.
Right. Financial gain he was seeking from her passing. You can just give as much information as you want to, really. I just was curious, and I think it speaks to motive. But what kind of things did you find on the laptop, like other than the
So
dating sites?
I found his Google timeline records of where he
Mm-hmm.
was the day that he died. That's where we determined that he had passed by the house around the time of death. We found the places he stopped and things like that because the initial police report said that he had been at Forest High School all day. And that's when we brought it to the sheriff's attention that that wasn't true because we were able to pinpoint everywhere he'd been that day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we found the Google searches that he had searched. We found emails where we could see that they were in financial debt, like there was things that were past due, like electric bill and credit card bills and things like that, um, just to prove like financial hardships. Um,
Right.
I'm trying to think of what else. other than the dating websites. His login for the sheriff's department was still saved, where he could log into their system. I don't know if it was active or not. We found that a Ring doorbell camera had been disabled just 2 days before her death, in a trash email. Um,
Wow. And he threw that in the trash.
yeah, it was in the trash folder in the email.
Right. And so was it the Ring doorbell for like the front door?
The front door, yeah.
That and then and show it to the police, or were they just kind of basically they didn't want to hear it, for lack of
Yeah,
a better way to ask?
we took it to the sheriff when we met with him on February the 25th, and he basically deemed it irrelevant because there was nothing that they could do about it being disconnected, or they didn't find it suspicious or anything.
Well, I mean, I would find it suspicious if he went past the house around the same time. What time did he go past the house, if you don't mind me asking?
Around 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Okay, because that makes okay. Getting ready for her 2:30.
Do what?
Like, do you believe that she at that time she would have been getting ready for her to go to her 2:30 appointment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's horrifying. Megan L says no divorce, child support, alimony, financial gain from her passing, freedom to be on those sites or with who he wanted with no loss.
Correct.
Yeah. Did he have how did it work with when it how did it work when it came to their karate business? Was that business doing well, or
No, it was declining. Like, they were within days of it closing down
okay.
because of the lack of enrollment.
Was that an endeavor that she was equally a part of, that she wanted, or was that an endeavor that he wanted?
That was what he wanted, and she tried to help him manage it.
Mm,
He couldn't do the management part of it.
right. Yeah, women are just better at that, I think. No offense to any of the guys in the chat, but women are, we're a lot more organized and things like that, when it comes to that. But they weren't doing very well at it. So, and then you also have kind of a tumultuous situation with his daughter, um, who teenagers can be really, really, uh, you know, um, kind of out of hand, you know, um, for lack of a better way to say it. I think we were all like that. But yeah, it is unreal, Megan Els. It is. Thank you for being here, Sandy. Thank you for listening. And then Megan Els asks a really great question. Does any of the neighbors have cameras?
None of the neighbors were questioned.
So none of the neighbors were questioned at all. They just kind of, so the investigation was basically summed up. I think it was in one of the news interview, about 2 hours. Does that sound about right? Because you were there. You said, oh, sorry, Jana, can you hear me?
Yeah, it was summed up in an hour and 45 minutes.
An hour and 45 minutes. And that's from when they arrived to interviewing
time.
him. It was like 45 minutes. He had them wait 45 minutes before he went to the station. Is that right?
Right.
And does anybody know what his whereabouts were? Because if he was 12 minutes away, then where did that extra half hour come into? Did he stop over at the house or
We have no idea.
yeah, see that doesn't make any sense to me. How far was the karate studio, or for lack of a better way to say it, but how far was that gym away from the house?
It was like a 12-minute drive.
Okay, that's the 12 minutes. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I got that. Okay. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Was there an area where he could clean up I mean, obviously, like, did it have showers and stuff?
Just a bathroom.
A bathroom, okay. But he could have washed his hands. But then again, they didn't do any testing.
Right.
Yeah. Sandy says, of course, you guys have great ideas. It's just so frustrating, all the injustice. It is, Sandy. It really is frustrating. Tricia agrees. Good night, Star. Thank you for being here, hon. Thanks for all your help earlier. You guys were amazing.
Yeah, might
Are
be with
amazing.
Star in a few minutes. I think we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, because you need to you have some things that you're gonna do too. So yeah, that you need to go for. And I hope you have safe travels and things like that. I guess my last question for you would be, what would you like to see this might sound like rhetorical, but um, what would you like to see done? What is your major goal here? And I think I know, but I just would like to
So
have you answer it.
if I could get one thing out of this, it would be to have her case investigated, an unbiased investigation, um, done by someone else that can come through, look at the evidence that is there, and give their best professional opinion. They might not be able to tell us exactly what happened that day, but they could go through and, give us a great opinion, professional, and then ultimately, I just want answers to these mistakes from the people that made these mistakes in this investigation, and then
Mhm.
the answers as to why. And I know this is reaching a little bit, but maybe an apology for the errors, because people make mistakes. I mean, no one's perfect, but
Right.
if you can't own those mistakes and you keep having to say other things just to cover up those mistakes or cover up the lies, then it just makes things worse. So, I mean, that's ultimately all I want.
Right. And I mean, I don't think it's too much to ask for to have an apology, at least some accountability. Um, I don't think that you're out for, like blood or anything. I think that you're legitimately, you just want the answers, and you want to be able to feel good about what was in those reports instead of having like more questions than answers, I think. Um, I just can't imagine having to deal with this. And you've done such a great job. I mean, advocating for your sister, just really detailed. I think you've been more detailed than the reports. um, just in terms of like a timeline. Um, I'd like to kind of put together a timeline for you, too, like maybe in a video, um, and then send it to you so you can review it, and then I can post it. But I would like to do something like that. I think that might help,
Yeah.
to get people to understand, um, kind of what transpired and how quickly it transpired. Um, and you haven't talked to Tony at all.
No.
Did he ever say he was sorry to you? You guys? I mean,
Uh,
did he ever apologize to the family? Like, as in like feeling any type of a guilt, like he was the man of the house and this happened?
Nothing.
Mm-mm. Well, I'm sorry because I think that you guys deserved an apology, especially the fact that he knew what he was doing and the things that you found out that he was doing, the fact that he was doing that and then he still had no really remorse or any type of um, like care or guilt, that
Right.
really screams like there's something wrong, like way wrong. Because at the very least, he would feel that guilt for being on the websites or feel that guilt for them not being in the best financial situation or the arguments and things like that that they were having. Um,
That,
just for him to have no emotion it's very narcissistic. Um, even to like the point of psychopathy, in my opinion. And I'm not a doctor,
yeah.
but that's crazy. I mean, it's not like they were a couple of months that and it was unexpected and maybe he was in shock, but then did he cry at the viewing? Did he show up?
He showed up, but there was no tears.
And he didn't like say sorry to your mom or give her a hug or like how was he just kind of there?
It was like a family reunion for him.
Like for his side of the family?
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Like his side of the family, it just seemed like they were having a family reunion.
Yeah, that is so odd. Like I can't imagine that. I just cannot imagine that. Yeah, there's just too many things that aren't adding up and that don't make any sense. And I appreciate you being so candid and letting us know like all of the questions that you answered. Um, it's like it's not easy, so I appreciate you coming on and telling us basically your sister's story and what happened and being so strong. I really appreciate it. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if there's anything that I can do, I will do it. Um, and we'll just keep pushing out content about kind of the evidence and things like that, so that way people are aware. And I really hope that Nancy Grace takes a big bite out of this case because, um, she'll be one of the best people to do it, but then there's also so many other people as well that if we can get the story out there. um I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions and people don't like to have those unanswered questions in true crime. We don't like it. um yeah, go ahead, Jana, go ahead, hon, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I just said absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, we just don't like it and it just doesn't make any sense. And just every time I go back into thinking about how this could have happened and how it could have been just something innocent, or it could have been something that they're right, she decided to do this. I don't think she did. I really don't. um I really don't. Vapor says the truth would be nice for starters. Absolutely. Trishy says survivor guilt for someone who takes their own life. There's or survivor guilt for a spouse that takes their own life would be so outwardly obvious in most situations. I agree. Especially
Oh,
if he didn't expect it, but he seemed like he expected, like it was like nothing. It was.
that's exactly what it felt like.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jana.
Oh, I said that's exactly what it felt like.
I mean, I don't get it. I don't see. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little bit overly sensitive, but then like I don't know. It's very bizarre. Did he come alone or did he bring friends? Forever Nikki's mom asked.
He brought his daughter and then his family.
Like, are his parents alive or to
Yeah,
come?
both.
And
Yeah, both were there.
Steve says, Jana, have you thought about starting a foundation in her memory, making people aware of this injustice as the support group?
Oh yes, that's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, I think you'll do great at it. I think it's something that's important. Um, One thing, like when I decided that I wanted to do a YouTube channel, it was because of Gabby Petito's case. And I saw a lot of people trolling me when I said that Brian was guilty and things like that. And talking about DV, and then they would be like really trolling me hard, like these guys were. They were men that were doing it, and they were like, "She's not the one, he's the victim," and this and that. It was crazy bizarro land to me. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." Because the minute that I saw her blaming herself, I knew that he was doing it to her for a long time. Otherwise, she
Wow.
wouldn't have just been blaming herself. Um,
Yeah.
but then I realized that like the YouTube verse isn't as friendly like DV friendly, right? It's kind of like taboo. And not a lot of people like to talk about it. And I feel like that was the main reason I wanted to start a true crime channel, was to talk about it. Um, because like you said earlier, it happens more than people think. It happens all the time. Um, every day, every single day. And a lot of times we don't know that it's happening to our loved ones. We just don't know. And Chief says good. Vapor says you can't even understand how inconsolable I would be if the person I loved did that to themselves. He knows damn well she didn't. I agree with that, Vapor. I agree 100%. Forever Nikki's mom says you are exactly right. Well, Jana, is there anything else that you want to say tonight? Um, I'll
Um,
give you the floor.
just just to thank everybody for being here, because it just to have the support is amazing. And then I have support coming from some of the other channels that I've been working with too, and that's huge. And just share her story as much as you can, because I mean, we just dug into part of her story tonight. I mean, hopefully we'll get another opportunity to keep digging into the rest of it, and then more things will come out.
Absolutely. You're welcome to come on anytime you want. Anytime. Anytime you have like even a new thought that you're thinking, hey, maybe this, or I mean, yeah, it's an honor for me because I could just tell that Crystal was an amazing person in your life, that you're amazing because of her, and she was amazing because of you. You guys just have had that bond, and whatever we can do to help. But yeah, like you said, this is like the tip of the iceberg, really, I think.
Yeah.
Um, that's sweet, Sandy. You guys are awesome.
Well, I thank you guys for letting me come up here tonight.
Yeah, like I said, anytime I'm going to do a video just on the evidence part of it, and I will send it to you, kind of the timeline, some of the evidence, or like the lack thereof, I think is probably more so, but like the discrepancies, that way people can see, here's what was said here, here's what was said here, the two, then that's been the most effective way that I think people can really see the big picture on how that has transpired.
Sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you have a safe trip, and yeah, just reach out to me anytime. Email me. You can call or text. You know.
Yeah, I'll shoot you my phone number because I enter text faster than I do emails.
I know I'm so bad with that too because I don't remember to go and click into the email and look. Um, so yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the same way. Yeah. Just yeah, call or text anytime, anytime, anytime. And
Okay, well, thank you so very much, and hopefully we'll be back on soon.
yeah, absolutely. We'll set up a time and we'll definitely be back on. I have so many like new questions and things for you too. I mean, a lot that you've answered, but then I know once I get into it, I'll probably text you and be like, "All right, what about this?" So,
Well, thank you again.
you're welcome. Absolutely. Thank you so much and let us know if you need anything, okay?
Okay, I will. I'll
All
talk to you
right.
guys later.
Yes, have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Sandy says we will keep your name alive for you, Jana. Thank you, Sandy. You guys are so sweet. You guys are so awesome. Thank you so much. Forever Nikki's mom says, thank you for sharing with us. You and your family are in our thoughts and prayers. Yes, they are, Nikki. Nikki's mom, yes, they are. And Sandy says, good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. Good night, Sandy. Thank you for being here. Thank you, guys. Good night, Nikki's mom. Thank you so much for being here, guys. All of you all. Thank you, Megan Els, Chief. Thanks, guys. Vapor. Let's see who else. I'll send some shout outs. Trishy, Star. I know Star went to bed. Yeah, and guys, I will also put some resources too. They were in the beginning of the video, but we'll also put them at the end of the video as well. Good night, Chief. Yeah, because if you are someone you know is going through this, just please make arrangements. Be safe about it, but get out of the situation. I know it's not easy, but it's necessary. When someone shows you their true colors, believe them, and if they did it to someone else, chances are that they're going to do the same thing to you. And I'll get more into why I say that in a different video. Yeah, Megan Els, it's a total wow for me too. I think I've stumbled over my words more times than I ever have, because it's just so absolutely unbelievable how sloppy and, in my opinion, there's just like red flag, red flag, red flag. Yeah, I guess there's no, you're welcome, Vapor. Thank you for being here. I guess there's just no words really to say. But look out for an evidence video. I'm going to do that. And feel free to please share this video. And make sure you go over, sign the petition. Please sign the petition. And go over to the Facebook groups, show some love over there, and definitely say a lot of prayers. Say a lot of prayers. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. I was just very much at a loss, guys. I was at a loss. Just the more information that Jana was giving, the more information I was like, oh my gosh, it just never should have happened this way. It never should have happened this way. Megan L says, it's bad. It's bad when you don't know about a case and wonder how close to LE they are. Well, that was the whole thing right there. Megan L says, that's so right. There's just so many red flags, but then knowing that, and then also who calls another officer just in a direct way like that. Usually you will call the sheriff's office or whoever or 911 or something like that to do a well check. Why do a well check? Why have them do a well check and not go over and check on your own wife? There's just so many things. Vapor says it's just a middle finger to her family from the people who are supposed to protect. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, they deserve so much better. Her sister deserves better. Her mom, her kids, her nieces, everybody that loved her deserves better than this. It's bullshit. It's just it's complete bullshit. Your neck hurts from shaking your head so much. Oh my goodness. I'm in shock. I know. It's like, yeah, 12 minutes away, Megan Els. 12 minutes away. 12 minutes away. So, all right, guys. Well, with that, I'm going to say goodnight, and we'll be back live tomorrow night, and we will go over some more of the things that we didn't go over with Sebastian Rogers, and then I want to present some of the video that I'm going to create tomorrow night. We'll do that in the second half, and that way we can I can kind of show you some of the things that I found in my research, and then I will kind of compile what questions that Jana was gracious enough to let me ask, and we'll go over those as well in the video. I'm going to create a video right now. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for listening, for being so kind, and for being so thoughtful. The questions that you all asked were amazing. I was kind of floored, so I was glad that you were able to come up with great questions as well. Thank you all so, so much. And let's get justice for Jana. Let's get justice for her sister, Crystal, because I can just tell she's not going to stop until it happens. So let's make it happen, guys. Let's make it happen. Thank you all so much. I love you all. Stay safe out there.